I always wanted to be like other dancers, to look like her, my body to look like her, or my feet to look like her. There were so many different people I wanted to be that I was losing who actually I was as a dancer. You start to think, oh, you know, I'm not winning. Maybe it's because of that.
We talk quite often on here about how just impressionable young women are.
Yeah.
And so when it's mixed with performance and being judged and perceived by people, I can understand that it gets so messy in your head.
Yeah. I remember clearly being told, like, if you do want to make it to the top, you're going to have to change a few things. I did lose a lot of weight at one point. When I went to the doctors, they're like, it was very dangerous to even fly that far because of how weak your body was. Your heart was so weak, could have easily caused a heart attack, which is quite scary.
Hi guys, and welcome back to the Gym Girls Locker Room podcast. Today we have none other than Strictly star Dianne Buswell. We spoke what really goes on behind the scenes at Strictly, growing up in a competitive environment, the toxic dance industry, and the impact that has on you growing up as a young, impressionable girl. We also discussed Dianne's journey with her eating disorder and how low the lows were and how she recovered and how learning from that has really changed her relationship with food. And how there's hope for people that are also suffering with disordered eating. We also spoke about how healing movement is and the power of dancing. I do just want to give you guys a trigger warning that this does discuss eating disorders. So if that's something that you're not able to take in right now, then that's absolutely fine. Feel free to give one of our other episodes a listen to. But yeah, I think this was like really helpful and also low-key just fangirling the whole entire time. So without further ado, I hope you enjoyed the episode. Dianne Buswell! Thanks for coming on the Gym Girls Locker Room podcast. It's such an honour to have you here.
Thank you for having me.
We were saying it would be so funny because like the kind of demographic here at the offices we're in, we were like, oh my God, imagine some of the like office managers just look around and they just see Dianne from Strictly.
Like, and you can't miss me either with this red hair.
You
honestly.
certainly can't.
It's just there.
Yeah, literally. No, so happy for you to join us. You're currently on the Strictly tour right now.
Yeah.
Aren't you? How's that going?
It's going really good. I actually love touring. I think I just love theatre. I love the fact that you can see the audience and you get like such a buzz from them. Like they just love it so much. And what I think is really special is like how much this show means to a lot of people. Like people come over and over again to see us dance, and you can just tell they leave so much happier. So it's really nice to be able to give other people a bit of happiness just by them coming to watch us put on a show. So it's quite fulfilling, actually. I love it.
I can imagine. So how's your week looking whilst you're on tour? Like, what is that like? Full on, I'd imagine, right?
So we do like 8 shows a week. So it's like Mondays is usually our day off. But I say day off. We're all such like doers that we try and jam pack as much as we can into that one day off that we get. So yesterday we went around Manchester and we did probably more than what you guys have done living here. So it's like we really get it done. Then Tuesday all the way up to Sunday, we're in the theatres dancing, sometimes double show days. But again, if we have a show at night, we'll try and make the most of the morning. So like I tend to like to find a hot yoga place somewhere because I think it's like just stretches out my body ready for the show. But yeah, it's fun because we get to see loads of different places that I probably would never have gone to if we weren't on tour. And we're with like a really cool group of people. So I always say it's a bit like I remind myself of it reminds me of when I was on year 7 camp when I was younger. I loved that feeling like everyone's
School
getting on the
vibes.
bus, like a school trip, and then you get to your hotel and like everyone wants to stay up late and it's really fun. I feel like a child again.
Oh, I love it. Well, obviously this is the Gym Girls Locker Room podcast. So we, at the top of every episode, we love to ask people, what is your workout split? So I'm thinking, okay, she's on tour. She's already doing 8 shows a week. What does it look like? I know you are a little bit, you love your Pilates, love your yoga. So are you actually fitting in anything else, or is that what it's kind of looking like for you?
So, like I said before, I love doing a yoga workout in the morning if I have a one show day, because after the show at night, we get on a bus straight away, basically, and we travel, and then we sleep in the next destination. Then you wake up and you do feel quite stiff after like the intense show and then the travel on the bus. So I love to find a hot yoga place wherever I go, and it just really releases my muscles, ready to go again, basically. I feel like it's kind of a bit of a recovery for my body. But then I also do like before the show, I'll do strength exercises. I have a little bit of a, I'll say, dodgy right hip, so I'm trying to strengthen that. So I do like more Pilates based stuff, but things that I've sort of been recommended by physio to strengthen my glutes and things like that. So I'll always spend about half an hour prior to the actual show starting just going through sort of exercises, that strength exercises really. But yeah, it's mainly yoga, show, strength exercises. That's kind of how it works.
I wonder as well, like when I'm hearing you say that, I'm like, I wonder if you also do it. I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, but I wonder if you're doing like the whole like Pilates thing, because it's just like a very different energy. It's like, I'd imagine the shows are like super high energy, right?
Yeah.
So
I think that's why I love yoga
yeah.
and Pilates, because it is so chilled. And the show, if anyone has seen the show, it is very intense and high energy. And I'm constantly smiling and always like with lots of energy. Even after the show, like meeting and greeting people, you still got this energy to you. So I find yoga and Pilates is a real good way for me physically, you know, like I said, stretching out and helping my muscles recover after being sort of that intense work. But mentally as well, it's just so nice to kind of not think of anything else and have someone guide you through a practice. I love hearing their voice and not having to think myself, because when I'm dancing, I'm constantly thinking, right, I've got to do this right here and I have to make sure my legs pointed there, or my everything has a real thought process behind it. Whereas yoga, I just let them tell me exactly what to do and I just sort of move my body to do it, which I love.
And it's like no performance as well.
There's no performance.
You're just there in the moment.
Yeah.
In the movement.
I mean, I still try and point my toes, but
she does. Come on.
Yeah, I can't not. But I do, yeah, I am really invested in the moment. And I fell in love with yoga years and years ago. And ever since, I've just been hooked on it, just purely for that sort of Zen moment and just a time for me to go in and not think of anything else, which is really nice.
Okay. So going on to like Strictly and like dancing, because I can't even fathom. It kind of surprises me that you say, to hear you even say that like when you're dancing, you are thinking so like, is it using a lot of like brain function?
Yeah.
It's not like because in my head, I'm like, oh, she's a professional. Like she's been doing this. It must be very like kind of
second nature.
Yeah, just like autopilot. But actually, is it mentally fatiguing? Or?
A lot of things can be autopilot, like that you learn from a young age, obviously. But in the show, especially that I'm doing now, I'm dancing with basically all the pro boys. So it's not like you're just dancing with one partner and that's it. You're swapping and changing all the time. So each boy has a different lead. Each boy wants a different reaction. Like it's very
what do you mean by that?
Like, so there's a lead and follow in Latin and ballroom dancing. Okay. And when we get taught as young kids, each teacher sort of has a different look on a lead and a follow, and they, you know, there is just typically one lead and follow, but the way they do it is always different. So when you're dancing with each different boy, they all feel very different. It could be the same step, but it feels different just because of the lead and follow situation. So each time you change partners, it's like, oh, okay, I've got to do this on this one. I've got to be a bit shorter with my lead, a bit longer with my lead. All technical dance terms here, but it's interesting because you are using your brain as to, okay, I'm dancing now with Gorka, right, I'm going to do this slightly different, or I'm dancing with, Vito, now I'm going to do this a bit different. It's, always thinking as well. You're always thinking technically, how can you make it look better? And it's never ending. Dancing is never ending. You think you've learned it all, but you haven't. And which is what I love about it as well, because you're constantly learning, you're constantly using your brain. I think dancing is one of the things that, like, for example, people with dementia and stuff, it's one of the last things they remember because it uses so much of your brain, like the music that you're doing it to, the steps that you're trying to remember. It's a known fact that it's one of the last things I remember. My nan had dementia, and she could still like tell you about her jitterbug days when she was dancing, and it was one of the last things she remembered, which is mad.
I was actually going to ask you about that in this episode, about like dancing and like the power of like healing that it brings, and just like movement. Yeah, it's just powerful. Like we found like loads of studies, but like saying that dance helps reduce stress, increase levels of the feel-good hormone serotonin, help develop new neural connections, especially in regions involved in executive function, long-term memory, and spatial recognition. And it's just like, it's funny because I mean, I'm not a dancer, and then, to be honest, I don't think I ever really danced, but actually there's so much power in dance.
Yeah, it's true. I really see it as well when I'm teaching celebrities to dance, because they've obviously, most of them have never danced before, and I really see a change in them, mainly in their obviously they learn to dance, but mainly mentally. I just see they have so much joy, and it's the reason why no one wants to leave the show, because they have a purpose. They get up, they dance, and they feel good about it. Like, it gives them so much joy. And then when they leave the show, it's like, oh, like, now what? But they, a lot of them still do keep dancing because of that. But I really notice it a lot. It really, their mood changes.
Really?
They could come in the morning and be a little bit, not feeling it. But as soon as you start dancing, or they start to understand about it a bit more, and then you see them, I'm finally getting this, it's an instant mood change.
So is like dancing for everyone?
I personally think everyone can dance. I always take it back to like when we're kids, right? And when you put on music and a baby just so cute. When a baby, it's so cute. A baby hears music, right? And a baby will always like bop their head.
Really?
Yeah. I mean, honestly, if you put music on, and babies they start to move. They start to bop their and it's all in us. We can all do it. It's just we think that we can't. Like, the amount of times someone's come to me and goes, I cannot dance. Okay, well, let's try. And they end up being able to dance. So I think everyone can dance. It's, maybe some people aren't born to be a dancer, but I think it's in everyone to be able to enjoy music and to be able to move their body to that music.
No, do you know what? Maybe you are right. I don't know. Like, even for myself, I feel like it's like, maybe it's like a social programming thing. Like it's like a stiffness. Like, they even asked me to do like silly little TikToks for Gym Girls Locker Room. And like Alex even said, oh, get Dianne. I was like, no, you don't understand. That's my worst nightmare. Let alone in front of a professional. But and so it's actually like that. It's almost like a mental thing of like me being, and people that think they can't dance being like, oh, this like freeze,
Yeah.
How do you go about teaching someone, a celebrity, in the Strictly process? Like, how is that, first of all, how is that different for you as a dancer compared to like how you're saying you're dancing with the professionals and your colleagues? Like, what's the difference in experience?
Well, obviously when I'm dancing with another professional, they've also learned their whole lives, so it's your technical terms that you're talking in technical terms in dancing, and it's a quicker process basically. But when you are with a celebrity who has never danced before, I think it's really, like you say, it's about nurturing, and it's about making them believe that they can do this, because I can't be there judging them on anything because they've never done it before. So they think I'm judging them, but really I'm not at all. I'm like, and I want to make that clear from the get-go. I'm like, nothing you do is wrong, number one. I want you to try everything and feel like it's a really safe space for you to be able to move your body in different ways that you might not feel comfortable doing, but actually it might be the perfect way. So like, don't ever feel like, oh, she's going to think I'm going to look stupid here. That's the first thing I try and sort of, with my celebrity, get out the way, so that there's this relationship where they feel like nothing they do is silly, or they feel like, oh God, I'm going to look stupid out there, because they're not. And I think the more you kind of release your inhibitions, is that the word?
Yeah.
Release your inhibitions, the better dancer you become.
Yeah.
So it is really, it's like you say, it's so much mental as it is a physical thing, for sure.
Oh, I think that's so sweet. That sounds so healing, even hearing you say that, because it is just like, I couldn't even imagine going on that show. Like, I know it's most people's dreams.
Yeah.
But I think, gosh, that is such a big thing.
Yeah.
To not only be like, okay, I'm going to learn to dance, but to do it in front of people and like perform. Yeah. I think that's wild. I
mean, Ellie Leach was, a great example last year. She was so shy and so reserved. And then by the end of it, her last dance was like, all us pros were like, go on, girl. Like, she was being flipped upside down. She was so sassy. Like, she believes that Strictly changed the way she feels now, even to this day. Like, she grew so much on that show. And it was, she had a great partner in Vito who sort of does the same, just, gives them the confidence that they are able to do it.
Yeah.
And it was a mental thing for her, because she physically could dance for sure, but mentally she always thought, oh no, I can't do this. Yeah. Like, I can't do the sexy bits or even the like real posh bits. But she was a great little dancer in the end and looked incredible.
Just like really leading into it. I can understand that must be where the frustration comes if someone does get like eliminated. It's like, oh, they were getting so like, you're seeing the progress.
Yeah, that's the sad bit. And I think that's why we do take it so to heart. Like, everyone's like, it's just a TV show. It's like, it's not. It's more than a TV show, because you are seeing them change as a person. So you really empathize with them when they do leave the show. It's like, oh, they were just starting to sort of understand a bit more about dancing. And so, but I mean, it's the nature of the show when someone has to go home. But yeah, it can be quite soul destroying at the same time.
Yeah, totally. So how do you go into a new pairing with any expectations, or like, I mean, I assume not, right? Because you could have like the difference in some, like all of the contestants is so vast.
Yeah.
So do you go in with an idea of, or do you just go, all right, we'll just take it once
Yeah, usually a blank canvas. But however, once you find out who your partner is, I like to do my research so I can at least see their character, because obviously for me, I always want to make the choreography something that plays to their strength.
Yeah.
So I don't want to do something that I feel like it's probably not going to benefit them. So I try and do as much research before that first like proper meeting. But then your best research is actually spending the time with them in the training room and seeing how they react to certain moves, or, their personality. Like that always a factor in how I choreograph the routine. So, but yeah, usually a blank canvas, and then I sort of see as we get along, and they always improve. Like, they might start with no experience at all, but I always know they're going to end up learning how to dance for sure.
The only way is up.
The only way is up, exactly.
Gotta go somewhere.
Exactly.
So do you have you ever had stage fright, or is that just, do you still have it?
Not as much anymore, but yeah, I've definitely had stage fright. For sure. And it's weird to say that, because when I am performing, you'd think I'm the most confident person in the world. Like, you would never,
you totally would.
You really wouldn't think it. But there have been moments where I've completely panicked about going on stage, which is scary and not very nice, because obviously I love it so much. And I feel that only came through pressures of dancing, I think, through pressure of having to do something perfect, or knowing that someone was in the audience watching and what feedback would they give me. And so that for sure came from that, because when I was younger, not a care in the world. Like,
oh, so it wasn't that you stopped. Like, I feel like I was expecting to be like, yeah, when I was younger, I used to. That actually was something that arose.
Yeah, that arose as I probably got better at dancing, and as I understood that there was probably more at stake with dancing, like more when I was in companies where I was surrounded by extremely good dancers, and you just feel the pressure, I think. Exactly that. And that is what gave me the sort of stage anxiety. And I was like, I just want to be like when I was little and didn't have any of that worry. And, you know, every now and then it might come back, but it's, I mean, so much better now. But yeah, I think in the middle of my career, there was definitely a time where I thought, oh, I actually didn't enjoy being on stage for a bit. I just thought, oh, this is the last place I want to be. Yeah. And that, I would never say that like ever, because I love it so much. So yeah, that was quite not very nice actually. Yeah. Didn't like that.
What did you, when you sort of reflect now, like what were those steps you took to work through that, or did it just work itself out?
I think I had to be comfortable with what I gave as a dancer, because I always wanted to be like other dancers and always wanted to look like her, or I wanted my body to look like her, or my feet to look like her, and my legs to look like her. Like, there were so many different people I wanted to be that I was losing who actually I was as a dancer. And I noticed like people would kind of like, are you okay? Like, because on stage I wasn't bright and bubbly like I normally am. And it was a real transition where I had to go, wait, hang on. I'm trying to be like so many other people, yet the best version of myself is me. And we all know that the best version of ourselves is ourselves. And that took a while. You think it's easy just to say that, but it took a while for me to get out of that rut of constantly comparing myself to others, and to just go, right, okay, I just need to go out and be that little Dianne again, who enjoyed what they did so much. And that's what I think my power on stage is the energy I had, and the love, the pure passion I had for dancing really was something that, number one, got me the job on stage. And that's where I felt the most comfortable. So I had to really talk to myself to get me back into that moment. But yeah, I feel like now I feel a lot more confident with just being myself, especially on stage now. Like, yeah, in fact, pretty much 100% myself on stage. But those things can always you just have one thought or one memory that can bring you back to that moment. So, you know, I'd be lying to say that I've never thought about that again, because you do, but I'm very aware now.
It's like that saying that like comparison is the thief of joy. I think like everyone will resonate in some. You don't have to be a dancer, you don't have to be a performer. You'll understand that like it's just that little like thought that will niggle in, and then if you do let it sort of consume you, that's when you see the downward spiral. Okay, so I love that you're saying that you found your power in like stepping into you and who you are at your like core and your essence. I know I've heard like people say when they're performing that they kind of, or like actors or dancers, they'll like put on like an act, like they'll get over like their stage fright or whatever, their nerves, by stepping into someone else. For you, would you say you're kind of the opposite, and that you'll just kind of really be in your worth and your power? Or
yeah, I feel like especially with dancing, I am truly myself when it comes to dancing. However, I can play different roles in the dancing. So, you know, if I'm doing more of a contemporary piece, I put myself into more of a somber situation. If I'm doing something a bit more upbeat, it's me in that upbeat situation. Acting is, I feel, a little bit different. I have been sort of dipping my toes and fingers into acting stuff, and that is a bit different. I do take myself sort of out of Dianne world and put it into somebody else, and I enjoy that as well. But yeah, with my dancing, it's always me, but just in different situations and scenarios.
I love as well what you were saying about like just kind of going back to like that child version of you. I feel like that's what all of us are kind of trying to do, you know, with anything. We're trying to just unlearn these things we picked up along the way. With reference to like dancing, obviously you've been doing it for like years, right?
Yeah.
So do you feel like that there's things that you've like been on like an unlearning journey of? I feel like we all hear these stereotypes about sort of the dance community.
Mm-hmm.
How has your experience been with that?
Yeah, it's been like sort of up and down in my dancing. I think I grew up in a really small little town, so I didn't go to probably like the best dance school that you could get in Australia, but I loved it, and I felt pretty like prim of the crop when I was in my little dance school in Bunbury. But then obviously you go and compete and you're going up into the city where there's many more dance schools and they are like probably the best of the best. So you felt a bit like, oh, not as good in the city where you went to compete. So there was always that little up and down moment where you feel really, really high and then you'll go and you feel kind of quite low. It can be dancing, growing up as a dancer can be, oh gosh, all sorts of emotions really, like the highest highs and sometimes the lowest lows. And but I think that kind of helped me in lots of situations in life. Like I experienced a lot of real sadness when I was little because maybe the things that I really wanted I wasn't getting, but it made me kind of work hard for that in a way, but appreciate also the other moments. It's hard to explain, but I feel like it's definitely been a roller coaster for sure. And like I said, it wasn't until I was sort of dancing professionally is when I started to really feel the pressures more so. But I think the sadness I used to get as a dancer was mainly just because like, oh, I really wanted to win that, or I wanted to make the final in that. And it wasn't like life or death at all. But at that moment in life, you thought, oh gosh, like I was so distraught that I didn't make that final. But I had a really good support system. Like my mum was always so supportive and, you know, she wasn't a dance mum as such. She kind of just said, oh, it's all right, you know, you don't need to win everything and you don't need to be the best at that. But, you know, I loved watching you, and, you know, she made me feel very, very good about it. But still, as that little girl, you wanted to be the winner. But I think that's helped me a lot through Strictly, because obviously you can't win, you know, I can't go on Strictly and win every year. I mean, I haven't yet at all. But it makes you, you know, it makes you in life, I think, go, you don't need to be a winner to be successful. I think is what I'm trying to get at, actually, is that you can maybe be, you know, 6th, 7th, 8th maybe, and still be very successful in your career. You know, you think if you're not winning, then that's it. You know, you're not going to make it at all. But I actually think you have a bit more passion in you because you've never really got to that top level. So you're always striving. Sometimes if you are at that top level, you take it all for granted. And not for everyone, but yeah, I think it could get like that. So yeah. I don't know if I really answered your question there, but
you totally
you know, we
did.
went on to
no, that was so good to hear. Yeah, because I wonder, like, with a few people we've had as guests, we've been talking about kind of being in competitive sports as a child and like the impact that has on you. And I feel like a lot of our guests kind of decided to part ways with whatever they were doing. And I think it's an interesting talking point, the fact that you've continued through with dance and how your relationship has changed with dance, something that was like a hobby to being something that like is obviously how you make your living now. And I don't know, it's just like, how's your relationship been with that, like the highs, the lows, and how does that like have an effect on your psyche, you know, as a child? Or do you think actually, nah, it's fine?
There's definitely had effects, I think, for sure, throughout the whole career. I think any sort of competitive sport there is a mental side to it. But I stopped competing actually when I was 21 and went into performing. So there's like a bit of a difference. I think competitive world is probably a little bit more judgy, I would say. And that's kind of why at 21, when I got offered to be in a stage show where what the difference I found was when I was competing, people look at what's wrong, basically. Like, yeah, no, we're not going to mark her well because she's not doing this very well or not doing that very well. Whereas when I went to perform, you have an audience of people watching you, appreciating what you're doing because they've bought a ticket to come see you. They want to be there watching you. They don't want to criticize you. So I feel like that's the difference, competitive and then performance-wise. Like now what I do when I'm going out there dancing in front of all these people, I feel so much joy and love because they're sitting there like literally watching like in awe and loving. They're not sitting there going, oh, she didn't do a great bachata there. They wouldn't even know what a bachata is, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Whereas like when you're competing, they're looking at every single step you do and analyzing it. So the pressure is so much higher, I think, than what I do now, because what I do now is about love and passion and joy, and I see that from both sides, which is really nice.
Yeah, definitely. I know you've like opened up recently through, I've seen on various different things about your eating disorder. Was that like, would you say that was a direct consequence of kind of growing up in that dance world?
Yeah.
For you, was that the catalyst?
I think so, definitely. I mean, I grew up as well in a family who loves food so much. Like my mum is, she's Italian, so it was just constant. She's such a good cook, and we just, all of us, all our family love a good meal. We find eating a celebration, like every birthday, Christmas, anything is like always a get together with loads of food, and we love it. And dancing, it was I was probably I would say, I think normal now, but when I look back, I used to think I was a bigger size compared to all the other girls. And obviously when you're little and you look around and you're kind of maybe a bit bigger than the other girls, you start to think, oh, you know, I'm not winning. Maybe it's because of that. So I think even from a young age, I had these thoughts in my head. And then I remember clearly being told, like, if you do want to make it to the top, you're going to have to change a few things, which was, you know, aimed at being a bit fitter and these kind of things, they can stick into your head. So at a young age, I think it was kind of a domino effect from there. And then obviously when I joined the dance company, you're again surrounded by girls who just, you know, that was where that whole thing of I want to look like other people and I want to dance like them. You just see what they look like and you compare them to yourself. So you get into this rut of doing stuff. And then what I found really hard was that when that was happening, say I did lose a lot of weight at one point, people say, you look great.
I know, like positive.
So it's like a positive reinforcement, not necessarily on stage and you're dancing, but, you know, around just in a costume or something, you look great. So you think in your head, oh, okay, good. That's a good thing. I look great. So therefore I must keep going with this. So I think that kind of environment is definitely doesn't help the situation. And I'm sure it still goes on a lot now.
I was going to ask you
I think I would love to work a bit more with dancers, and just because I'm sure it does still go on, and it makes me really sad. Like even if I hear anything like that backstage or anything, I tell the girls how, like, you're beautiful the way you are. Like I genuinely do not want to hear any of that stuff because I just know the spiral it can lead to,
and how deep it cuts as well.
Oh, it really does. Like even, you know, with eating and stuff like that, you know, enjoy what you're eating. Don't look at it and think, oh, I shouldn't be eating this today. Like, just, yeah. I have a very different relationship now with food and with exercise and with all that stuff, for sure, because of all of the stuff I went through.
Where does that actually come from? That is it just a dancer aesthetic? This like gentle or not even gentle to be honest, but this whispering of like, if you looked like this, like where is that actually coming from?
I think it is a dancer's aesthetic. I think you see pictures of dancers and you see the top dancers and they're all, you know, with their limbs are just long and lean and I just think that's embedded in your head to, oh gosh, that looks beautiful when to look at, but actually like I see the opposite now. I see both. I think all bodies are beautiful the way they are, but I used to only be zoned into one type of body, but now I look at all and I think, gosh, gorgeous, like all of them. So I think that's the difference. I used to be zoned into one type and now I'm like, no, they all do the same thing. Like they can all be incredible.
Yeah, I didn't know if in some weird twisted way it did actually serve some like functional, you know, it was like, oh, we're telling you this because, but actually no.
Yeah, I think possibly ballet is a bit different, but I never did ballet. So actually I feel like that might be even more of a tough situation there. But like in my world, in the ballroom and Latin world, I don't think it does serve any purpose to be any sort of height or weight. But I don't know about ballet. I'd have to do a bit more research into that dance style. I don't know, but not in like ballroom and Latin.
Yeah, I wonder if there is like nowadays if there, because I was going to ask you like, do you feel that things have changed quite a lot now in that sort of jump of time? And I wonder if there is any sort of safeguarding. I think it's like it must be really tough when you are a performer because it is based on how you look. And I think when you're so like, we talk quite often on here about how just impressionable young women are. Yeah. And so when it's mixed with performance and being judged and perceived by people, I can understand that it gets so messy in your head.
Yeah, it definitely can. Like I won't sit here and say it's not like that at all, because it can, and I'm very well aware like it is an image thing as well. So you know, it can be really tough, but it's one again that I think when you understand your own worth and that power, the power of that is much more than any look that you'll have, because you will resonate out beauty no matter what, and you have this star power that people are just like, she's the one. And I think that is the power. You see it in actors, you see it in so many people that you can tell that they are just so comfortable in themselves that they just a star. And I think that's how a star is made, is when they're so comfortable in themselves.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Did you know whilst you were in it, I want to talk like recovery now, because I do know that it is something that a lot of women do struggle with.
Yeah.
Was it something that you were aware of whilst you were in it? Like, I know this is happening. Or were you actually kind of blind to it?
I definitely wasn't blind to it. I understood what was happening. I understood, especially when I started to feel really sick. Like I felt really weak. I felt like that was when a lot of the anxiety was coming as well. A lot of stage fright, all that stuff was really high at that point.
I saw that you were like, you said you were on like the verge of having a heart attack.
Yeah,
as well.
I was so weak that when I went to the doctors after my contract, they were worried about that flight that I just did, a flight from America to Australia, and with the pressure and stuff, they're like it was very dangerous to even fly that far because of how weak your body was. Your heart was so weak, and it could have easily caused a heart attack, which is quite scary. And when they say things like that, you're like, oh, it is very serious, which I was aware of it, but I wasn't aware of what damage you're actually doing to your body until a doctor says something like that to you, and you're like, okay. That was a real wake-up call for me, because I am someone who kind of I pride myself on wanting to look after my body, and I certainly wasn't doing that. You know, you think, oh yeah, well, I'm only eating like 1 egg a day or whatever. That's not a healthy thing, especially how much I was doing, you know, with the shows and stuff. So it made me really change my perspective, and I now want to feel good. And in return, I will look good because I feel good. You know, if you look after your body and your mind, I'm going to look good.
Yeah. And like using food as fuel.
Yeah. Oh,
I love
sure.
that, because I feel like it's like, okay,
For
well,
sure.
if you're fueling yourself correctly, then just as a byproduct, you're going to look good. But making sure that you're kind of putting nutrient first meals, nourishing, feeling good. Yeah. So what was recovery like for you? Was it a slow process or?
I was quite lucky. It was quite a fast process, if I'm honest. I think what I realized was very quickly that I missed my dancing, number one, a lot. I missed having the energy. That's my thing, you know. I have energy, and people are always like, oh, your energy is so infectious, blah blah blah. And no one ever said that to me anymore. I was like, oh, I really missed that. I missed that compliment. I missed the energy compliment. And so I realized a lot of things very, very quickly. And when I was taken out of the dance world and I was back home, my family were all amazing support, and they helped me a lot. And I did recover really quite fast, actually. And it turned me onto really looking after my body. And I wanted to learn more about my body and learn like more about nutrition and stuff like that, which is kind of where I found my love of yoga, where I found my love of I love nutrition, and I love learning anything I can learn.
Just I'll wellness as well.
Wellness, yeah. That was where really my love for all of that came. And I just started to feel better so instantly, really, from starting to look after myself, that I thought, this is what I should be addicted to, not the feeling awful and the, you know, maybe I got a comment of I looked great every now and then, but I felt awful. So then when I started to feel good about myself again, that's what I become addicted to, is actually, wow, I'm actually doing things that making my body feel good now. So that becomes an addiction, which is a great addiction to have.
Oh my God, totally.
Yeah.
I think it's so interesting as well what you say about like that whole like energy. Like I feel like you are known for being such a big like character and being so like bubbly and like out there. And even you see it with like bodybuilders when they are doing those extreme cuts, which are not sustainable or healthy. They're so moody and they're so down. And, you know, when you see people that are suffering with eating disorders, they are just literally a shadow of themselves.
Yeah.
Do you have any advice for anyone that is listening that's struggling with disordered eating?
It is really sad because you see yourself, like you say, like a shadow, and you know very well that what you're doing is making you so down, and it's so hard to just take that step to be like, why am I doing this? Why am I making myself feel like this? It is an addiction to whatever it is you're doing, you know, like bodybuilding, or in my case, just I had this addiction. I wanted to look a certain way, and I guess, my advice, try and think about that because I want it to be good advice. When I found what my thing was, which I always kind of, like I say, my energy and all of that, when I lost that and then gained it again, that's when I actually got that's when I got my dream job. That's when I got, you know, the dream boyfriend. That's when I got all these things that I always wanted. It was because I was actually doing what truly makes me happy. And I think if you make yourself happy first, everything just aligns after that. But when you're down and trying to restrict your eating, restrict your friendships, restrict your moods restricted, it just nothing is going to go forward. You're just going down the staircase rather than up. And it's a hard one to think of like that, but it's taking like one staircase at a time, and you will eventually get to like the rainbow at the top, which is really beautiful to do that. So, I mean, I don't know if that was advice, but
no, I think that was so good. That was like, so perfect.
I don't know. That's just how I feel anyway.
Yeah.
I was going down the stairs, and I think as hard as it is, just climb one stair at a time and enjoy that, like that step and that moment that you're in. It might be the smallest little thing, but it's a step up, and then take your next step, and then your next, and your next, and your next.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, that's so beautiful to hear. Going back to like Strictly, so do you like, people always say like, oh yeah, no, it's like fine, it's not about winning, but like, does it crush you? Like,
look,
do you have like this competitive streak in you? Or...
I think naturally, yeah, I love a good competition. But however, like I said before, I was never a winner when I was younger. Like, I never really won much. Like, I was always either second or third, or sometimes I didn't even make the final. So it was, I feel like I experienced all of that as a young kid. And for a very long time, even on Strictly, like probably my first few years, I was like, always happens to me. I never win, or I'm always second. But now, honestly, last year when I was in the final with Bobby, I am so much better with being second now. Like, I genuinely, that night, the final, I had the best time. We danced the best. We felt all the emotions we wanted to feel. That when it came down to stood there, okay, a small part of me was like, it would be really cool to stand there with Tess and Claudia and lift up the glitter ball. But at the same time, I was so content and so happy that we'd done the best night, and we felt all these beautiful emotions, that when they called out Ellie and Vito's name, I was like, amazing. Like, I didn't need to win it for me to feel good. I already felt good. So yes, I'm competitive, but I'm also really okay now with not winning. But it has to be okay that I feel like I've made a difference, or I feel like I feel like it was like I said, that final night, I felt just everything was great. Like, it felt brilliant. We felt sad, we felt happy, we felt all the emotions. If I probably didn't feel those in the night, I would have stood there going, oh, it would be really nice to win now. But I didn't. I felt really happy. So it's about the journey that you go on, I think, more than actually lifting the glitter ball for me. But that took a long time. Like, you know, when I danced with Joe, I really wanted to win. That was my second year on the show, and I was like gutted. I was gutted we didn't win. And that took me a good couple of weeks to get over. But the more I've gone through it, I realised, it's more than that.
Was that your lack of experience with the show?
I think so.
Or because you were like, I want us to win it.
Yeah. I mean, I would have loved for Joe and I to win it, especially at that time. But I definitely think it was lack of experience in the show. Because I think you can win the show without winning the show. Because,
that's what I'm hearing from you.
Yeah.
That is honestly what I'm hearing, that like, you're not going to allow a win or a loss to dictate like that experience for you and how you feel about it.
Definitely.
And I think all too often we all lean on these kind of like achievements.
Yeah, like a physical thing that you're holding to say you are the winner of that. But so many of us are winners in so many ways without having to hold a trophy up at the end. So I really, I love that I've got that sort of feeling now, because it's kind of not the nicest when you're so eager to win something, but you forget about all the other stuff that's gone on to get to that point anyway. You're focused on a glitter ball.
I know.
But like,
there's so much
more than a glitter ball. So that's the honest truth. I really wanted to win with Joe, and he couldn't tell you how upset I was after. But yeah, now I'm much better with all of that, and glitter ball or no glitter ball, I'm really not bothered.
Glitter ball or no glitter ball?
Yeah.
Is there this like what's the vibe amongst the professionals that are teaching? Like, is there a competition vibe, or is it we're all friends, we're all like, behind the scenes, what's going on?
Behind the scenes, we are, to be honest, we are actually really good friends. Like, all of us, we're all so different, which is what I love. Like, we are some are born competitors, and that is fine because actually they do their job extremely well, but they're still lovely, and it's just some people are more competitive than others, and that probably stems from their competitive upbringing as well. Like they were always like trained to be competitive dancers, so it's gonna come out. But we are at the same time all very good friends, and when I say competitive, they would never do anything to jeopardize anyone else, like ever. They just obviously they're a bit more competitive than others. But no, I wouldn't say that it's really a competitive vibe. We're all really good friends, and we all treat our celebrities like, we know that they've never done this before. So you can't be like a competitive dancer would be with your celebrity, because it's completely different. Also, the show there's so many different, abilities on the show. Some people have danced before. Some people have never danced before. Some people have a disability. Some people, dancing it's male and male, or a female and female. So there's so many different variables. We're all dancing a different dance on different days. So it's not a real competition in that sense. It's very, you've just got to do the best that you can do at that time. So yeah, I feel like it is a competition, but it's not at the end of the day. Very different.
Yeah. Just going back to like what you're saying about being like devastated that you lost. Do you find that that's like a thing, that kind of like high and low after these either nights or after the shows, or are you so like experienced with this that you very much can take it in your stride?
There's still definitely a high and low, no matter how much experience, I think, because even after, like, say you have been training all week for this one dance that you're going to do on Saturday, and if it doesn't maybe go as well as you sort of thought it would, you can get a little bit, like, it can be a bit disappointing because you've worked so hard and it can be better. However, it's the way I go about that now, whereas that could have played on my mind for weeks on end. Now I feel much more like, okay, that happened. Yes, I feel a little bit low about it because I know it could have been better. But, okay, we move on. Like, there's another dance to do. What is my point in dwelling on it? I'm just going to learn from it, and that's it. Whereas I feel like previous, when I was younger, maybe even in my second year of the show, I probably would have dwelled on that a lot longer. So, yeah, there still are highs and lows, but I think it's how you deal with the highs and lows is what changes.
Yeah, definitely. How long have you been living in the UK for?
So this will be my 8th year on Strictly, and I started living here when I started Strictly. So, yeah, I'll be going into my 8th year of living in the UK.
Oh, my gosh. I was going to ask you, I can only really speak for the Australian sort of fitness community, because I've heard things about it just being very different to the UK community. And I just wondered, dance, health, fitness, what sort of observations have you made about the two? Do you feel like there's a stark contrast, like I feel like I've heard?
Yeah, I feel like in Australia it is just, I guess the weather makes a big difference in terms of people getting out and being more active.
Yeah.
So what I notice when I'm in Australia, you wake up in the morning and there's so many people running on the beach, or there's, people getting their morning workout in. In terms of like fitness, that's what I observe when I go home to Australia. I'm like, wow, people, like they just feel and look a bit more energized. Whereas here, I guess the weather doesn't help. It doesn't make people want to get up as early or do their workout before going to work or whatever. So maybe that is a contrast that I've noticed. But because I've always been in the dance world, Australia is a little bit more, especially where I'm from, Western Australia, a little bit more, it's quite far from everything else. So we always worked really hard in the dance world, but we weren't really as well known because a lot of the stuff happened in like the UK or around here. Like the big championships was always in Blackpool. And obviously my mum could never afford us to be going to Blackpool. So you never really got your name out there in the bigger sort of worlds kind of thing. Hence why when I first danced in Blackpool on Strictly, I was like, oh my God, this was my dream. Like when I was like 6 years old, I was like, Mum, I want to go to Blackpool.
I did not realise that, obviously, I feel like everyone's heard about Blackpool, like in the dancers world, but I didn't realise that was like a global thing.
Yeah.
I didn't realise that
it
kids
is global.
In Australia
I was
like,
7 years old when I wanted to go to Blackpool.
Oh my!
I was like, my dream
so
in my diary. I was like,
guys...
one day I'm going to make it to Blackpool. Little did I know I'd be on Strictly Come Dancing going to Blackpool every year. And every year I still have this like little goosebump moment. I'm like, oh my God. Like little Di, all she wanted was, I even told my mum I'd raise like my own money. I tried to do lemonade stands. I tried to do car washes. No one ever came. I never made enough money or didn't make a dollar in Australia. So I was never allowed to go to Blackpool, but I always wanted to.
Oh my God. Like, what would little Dianne think?
Oh, she would be beside herself. Like she really would. And it was like the thought I had of what Blackpool was like is very different. I didn't think it would look like
what, the town?
Yeah. When I went, I was like, oh, that's what she really wanted to go to when she was 7 years old. I actually love it now. Like I love Blackpool. I think because of the fantasy of me wanting to go there for such a long time. And, you know, when you really want something as a kid and it just felt so far away and so like I'll never get there. And yeah, so it's pretty crazy to go to Blackpool and dance. We're going there on tour as well, actually. So yeah, I give myself a little pat on the back every time we're there. I'm like,
good.
Go on, Di.
I'm glad because I think like going back to even what you were saying about like just kind of being so focused on like the next thing or like not having this I think like sometimes you just need to take a moment to be like, wow, even where I am right now, like a 7-year-old me would be screaming. Yeah. Like not only did you have that goal going to Blackpool, but you're doing it with Strictly. Like that's insane.
It's crazy.
So
it blows my mind.
Yeah.
And you're right. It's so important to have those moments of like looking back at what you've already achieved and like how far you've come, because you can get stuck in moments where you're like, I'm not doing anything. Like if I'm not doing a tour or I'm not doing Strictly at that moment, I might have like 4-week gap and I panic myself. I'm like, but you have to just sit there and go, it's all good. You've achieved so much. And then when you actually look back at what you've already done, you're like, yeah.
I know.
Like, it's insane. It's amazing.
I want to ask you, obviously you've come from like years of like, do we call it classical dance?
Ballroom and Latin is what I've always done.
Okay.
So yeah.
But like, you know what I mean? Like really kind of like, you're doing this properly.
Yeah.
Understand you'll see where I'm getting at. What is the dance world, or more specifically your take on like the rise of TikTok dancers?
Mm-hmm. I love it.
Do you?
I love it. I think it's great. I think it gets more people dancing, number one.
So
and when you are doing a TikTok, like because I do them myself, it's a great little workout. Like you're and you feel, again, it's that endorphin when you're dancing and you're learning, because you're learning the choreography. Like sometimes it takes me a good, hour or 2 hours just to learn. I'm like, how are they doing that? And I'm trying to figure it out, and then I'm doing it, and then I'm filming it. I love it. I think it's really, really fun. And anything, dance doesn't have to be classical to be cool or, technical. It can be, I think, all kinds of dance. And I've always thought this. I've always loved every style. I appreciate movement in any which way, shape or form. So I think it's great. I really do.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. I love what you're saying about like this kind of like accessibility that it brings. Like it just it opens up dance for more people, which I think if you are someone that is passionate about dance, then you would have the same sort of answer you did. Yeah. I didn't know if like in the dance world, people are like, look at these silly TikTok dancers.
I mean, I'm sure there might be some people like that, but for me personally, no, I don't think so at all. And I think I could speak for all my fellow pros. I mean, they love a TikTok just as much as I do. So I think they're all very pro TikTok as well.
Yeah, definitely. What do you have like coming up? What's going on apart from obviously the tour, which is
so we have a Strictly tour, which will take me to. When will that take me to? June. I'm going to go home, see my family for a little bit, which will
As
be
you
really
should.
nice.
Yeah.
Then we got another Strictly season. So that is, up and coming. We kind of start that in July, which is quite soon, really, when you think about it.
It is really.
Which then takes me to like the end of the year, to be honest. Strictly takes me all the way to the end of the year. But I am I'm really wanting to get into more acting and stuff like that. So that's like, I think my next adventure is the acting world. I'd love to do something with that. So
put it out there.
I'm putting it out there. I'm putting something to do with my acting. I'd just love to. I'd love to try it. It scares me, but I love that. I love to be scared sometimes.
Yeah, exactly. That's the most exciting part. Where can people find you?
I have a YouTube channel. I do quite a lot of stuff on my YouTube channel, Dianne Buswell. I also have Instagram, which I do quite a bit on, and also TikTok as well. So
and on the TV.
Oh, and also on Strictly Come Dancing, obviously. Yeah, BBC.
Thank you so much for coming on. I feel like that was so powerful, and I know that like there'll be a lot of girls out there that really.
Oh, I hope so. I hope so, because I think. I love the reason I wanted to talk about all this sort of stuff is initially because it's quite scary and daunting to sort of open up about it, because you almost have a bit of guilt of like that happening. But I really want to help other people, because I'm sure I mean, a lot of people go through it, and for them to know that you can come out the other side and be very successful is, I think, a nice positive story. So
she's thriving, and also I think it's so powerful, and I think a lot of girls will really resonate with your journey, and I certainly found it interesting, so thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you.
All right, remember guys, you can find us at Gym Girls Locker Room on all platforms, and apart from that, I'll see you in the next one. Bye.